Who are you guys?
The Ghostbusters are some of Hollywood's most iconic heroes. You know, they represent the blue-collar man, getting in the trenches, getting their hands dirty, and most importantly, making a difference.
We're the Ghostbusters.
But they're also sleazy, cheesy, greasy, and easy. And what fascinates me the most is that from 1984 all the way to present day, these characters have evolved almost not at all.
Nothing happens!
What started as 4 regular Joes with beer guts, coffee-stained teeth, and dandruff, honestly has remained basically the same well into their 70s. I mean, Venkman is still a sarcastic lady killer, Ray is naive and excitable, and Winston is honestly just trying to get the bag.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
And for every square-jawed, barrel-chested Boy Scout in movies today, there's 100 of us regular dudes who can look at the Ghostbusters and see something that really resonates. All of that to say that as much as we love the Ghostbusters, aren't they kind of assholes?
And I say, my God, there's someone with the same problem I have.
Yes, we both had the same problem. You.
Look, as JoBlo's resident Ghostbusters fanboy, I find no shame in admitting that the original 1984 film remains to be one of my all-time favorite movies. And over the years, it's gained more than its fair share of praise for its witty and sharp dialogue, seedy and grimy depiction of 1980s New York, and its cast of characters that are individually as iconic as the team itself. What Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd were able to accomplish on this famously rushed production went on to become a staple film for households everywhere, and inevitably spawned a franchise consisting of 5 films, a really good video game that some would say serves as a movie in and of itself, a cartoon, a comic book, another cartoon, merch, I mean, you name it. And if you would like a full review of Ghostbusters in media since the 80s, I have done an entire video covering the extensive Ghostbusters franchise, so you know, check that out after this video. And say what you will about the franchise now, because while I admit that Sony does seem a little bit heavy-handed on making these movies bloated, forgettable summer blockbusters, I actually have good things to say about every Ghostbusters movie. Yes, even that one. I didn't say I had a lot, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Instead, what I want to focus on is, despite all of these movies having their own arcs and stories, the characters at the center of them never seem to change. I'll break down the character tropes that they fall into and explain what their arc looks like if there is one at all. And I want to do this because ultimately I'm fascinated by the obsession with Sony to keep the Ghostbusters characters at status quo and never ever change them too much. I'm gonna be honest, it works. But why? Well, because eventually every hero becomes unrelatable. They save the planet one too many times to worry about spilling coffee on their church clothes. They die and get resurrected so many times that they lose the concept of what it means to value a single lifespan. But these guys, the Ghostbusters, they're just like you and me. They're flesh, blood, balls, and bare hands. I think maybe somebody else could have made that work. It just sounded so wrong coming out of me, no?
Generally, you don't see that kind of behavior in a major appliance.
So first, we've got Venkman, the sleazy Casanova.
We get this guy laid, we won't have any trouble.
Bill Murray as Peter Venkman is obviously iconic and an inspired comedic performance. As a kid, he was probably my favorite Ghostbuster. Can you tell? His character is simple. He's a flirty, somewhat crass, sarcastic narcissist who loves what he does, but is only interested in doing it his own way. The word that comes to mind is, and I say this with absolute love and admiration, sleazy. Throughout the first movie, this character is largely motivated by getting the attention of hot women. Whether it's his student volunteers at the university or the beautiful Sigourney Weaver playing Dana Barrett, he will likely be the first one to help in a pinch, as long as he believes that there might be a little bit of nookie on the line.
Please.
I'm Peter Venkman.
In fact, he gets into the whole ghost-busting business as lack of a better option, and he definitely seems to put his own needs and wants ahead of his friends. With that, he is responsible for most of the funniest lines in the movie, and even by the end, Venkman falls in love with Dana, but it doesn't change him. He just goes from being a lascivious, crass bachelor to being a lascivious, crass non-bachelor.
Pete Venkman's a guy who can get things done.
Right.
Then you got Egon, who is just cold as ice. Harold Ramis plays Egon Spangler, and if there is one thing that we know about this character, he may as well have been born without a personality.
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Egon is the cold, unemotional, objective leader of the group. At least the intellectual leader of the group. His character is only interested in the advancement of science and the betterment of the field. His interest in catching ghosts comes from a need for understanding of the other side. In fact, he doesn't seem to care if anybody sees him as a hero at all. He's just a scientist who wants to do it for the love of science. And with that comes some dry comedy from his lack of social awareness and a disinterest in general small talk. The character doesn't really have any moments of growth throughout the movie, aside from a few cutesy scenes with the beautiful Annie Potts who plays Jeannie. And by the end of the movie, saving the world for Egon feels as much like a lab experiment as an actual lab experiment.
I'm terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought.
Then you got Ray Stantz, who's probably my favorite Ghostbuster now.
Something that could never ever possibly destroy us.
Ray is the one who does buy into the heroics and wants to use their scientific discoveries to help everyday people. Ray is definitely the heart and soul of the group. He's the one who wants the firehouse for a headquarters simply because it has a really neat fire pole.
Wow, this place is great!
He's the one who designs the iconic Ecto-1 and is the reason that we see the Ghostbusters as ground-level superheroes today. Ray believes in the team, he believes in the cause, and he believes of the future of interdimensional exploration. Almost to a fault. You know what Ray is? Ray's kind of like the friend that is the last one to leave the party. Just wants it to go on a little bit longer. Doesn't care if the sun's up and everybody's ready to go to sleep.
Let's get ready. Switch me on.
Then there's the only non-scientist of the crew, Winston Zeddemore. And he's really just in it for the money. Winston Zeddemore is played by the wonderful Ernie Hudson, and he joins the Ghostbusters midway through the film and becomes a solidified member of the team fairly quickly. The interesting thing with this character is that he is not motivated by the cause. In fact, he knows nothing about what the Ghostbusters are doing and has no reason initially to believe in any of it. However, like the rest of the guys on the team, he's just an everyday dude who needs a job. If anything, Winston is kind of the audience surrogate, where we can observe this world and the crazy antics of the other guys through the kind of straight man lens.
That's a big twink.
And at the end of the day, even after saving the world and seeing things that he could never unsee, his reaction is as if none of that even happened.
Since I joined these men, I have seen shit that'll turn you white.
Now, for a group of guys in their 30s, these tropes are kind of perfect. But you would think that over the last 4 decades, these characters would have changed, evolved, and grown, right? I mean, you know, like humans do. But instead, film after film carries very little development for them at all. Ghostbusters 2, which, hey, say what you will about it, okay? I like it, but it doesn't push these characters forward in any meaningful way. Venkman is still kind of a likable asshole. Egon is even more quirky. Ray is Ray, and Winston is still just stoked to be there if it means that he could put food on the table.
Hey, enough, all right?
This, however, may have been the problem with this movie's reception at the time. See, it wasn't critically anywhere near as successful as the first one. Roger Ebert even had this to say about the movie. Murray still gets away with his dry, Groucho revisited wisecracks, but the first movie was funnier, faster, and well, fresher. And by the way, the cartoon The Real Ghostbusters used these characters as their core 4, their main characters, but none of the episodes advance their characters in any way. Still a pretty good cartoon, I would recommend checking it out. But you know, Ghostbusters 2 only took place a short time after the events of Ghostbusters 1, so I guess it makes sense that we can't expect these characters to change too much. And honestly, who knows what the future might hold for these guys? Anything's possible. In Ghostbusters Afterlife, the original Ghostbusters are back. Murray, Hudson, Aykroyd, and even Ramis, thanks to some really sharp CGI, a body double, and tons of hours of TLC put in by the director, Jason Reitman. And this film is really good in my opinion. But let's talk about the core Ghostbusters who, in this movie, are back. After over 30 years in universe, Venkman is still a flirty, pervy old man, although now he's married to Dana Barrett. So he's like a flirty, pervy, married old man. You see what I mean? Even being married to somebody that he loves for 30 years is not enough to change who this person is.
I guess they just don't make them like they used to, huh? No!
Ray is slightly more icy these days, with him having a less friendly approach after years of being jaded, but the more the story goes on, he snaps right back into old Ray and all is right with the universe once again.
You're my subscriber?
Really found its voice in the 46th episode.
Winston perhaps has the biggest living character arc because he is now a multi-millionaire who reinstates the Ghostbusters and kind of brings them back to their old glory. I'm pretty sure all of that though is because he still just wants to get rich off of the IP. And then there's Egon, who I think has the biggest arc over the course of these movies, but in a unique way. See, his obsession with his work never changed, and it led him to being an isolated, grumpy old curmudgeon. But then when he's killed by Gozer, or I guess one of their ghosts, it's only in the afterlife that he can be a grandfather to Phoebe and make up for never being a father to his daughter when he was alive. It actually is really sweet, but the thing is, it doesn't occur until the very end of the movie, so in general, his arc really doesn't happen. See, everything we see from Egon before the end of the movie is just little nods and references to his character from the previous movies.
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
So, Venkman's arc is that he goes from sleazy, inappropriate scumbag to married, sleazy, inappropriate scumbag. Ray goes from being eager, ambitious to being eager and ambitious with like a small emo phase right there in the middle.
Egon Spangler can rot in hell.
And Winston goes from being a regular New Yorker who needs money to being a multi-millionaire who just wants money. And these are small changes that normally would happen over the course of a single movie. But here we are 4 decades later and we're still looking at the same set of dudes doing the same set of stuff. And the reason that it works and the reason that we still love it is because at the end of the day, the Ghostbusters are not heroes. They're everyday guys. They're moody, they're inappropriate, they're desperate, they're broke, they're rude, and sometimes, yes, they're assholes.
I know that now. I admit that.
Ready?
But let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's weird that over the course of all of these movies, the characters haven't evolved, or are you like me and you think it's kind of cool? Anyway, guys, that is it for me, but I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.